Jedi Survivor is a very worthy sequel to the well-received Jedi Fallen Order released in 2019. For some, it seemed to have left things to be desired, but to me, that was a game that I very much enjoyed and could not wait to get my hands on more of it. The same thing here could have been said about Survivor. The story and the gameplay itself are great. Awesome even, but unfortunately everything that makes it great is buried under the troublesome state of certain video games in this current generation, and I was honestly kinda left feeling disappointed. Set 5 years after Jedi Fallen Order, it opens with our friend Cal Kestis getting himself into trouble with the Empire. He is now rocking a fashionable stubble, and soon apparently even a mullet. We'll get more into that later. The old cast of characters return, along with some newer faces, or voices rather, that you may recognize, like Horizon Forbidden West Kotalo and Psychonauts' Rasputin Aquato. Hey, that kinda rhymed. The relationship Cal has with all of these characters are really well written, and often has heart, at least with some of the main characters. The villains though, were alright, but nothing really about them stood out, at least the two taking center stage for most of the game. In fact, one of them felt like he belonged in one of the newer Halo games. But the story here is actually really well done, and I'd say definitely better than the first. Not miles better, but better, and more interesting. Without spoiling anything, I almost felt the adverse effects of what I did with God of War Ragnarok here. God of War Ragnarok had a pretty awesome story, but for me, the ending felt quite a bit rushed and somewhat underwhelming. Whereas here, the story is great all the way through, and actually gets better and more interesting towards the end. So much so, I was able to forgive and overlook all the rest of the game's shortcomings because of how immersed I was into the story. I think it was also due in part to the fact that I thought the game was wrapping up at a point, but it then subverted my expectations, and for once in a very long time, actually in a good way. On the gameplay and combat side of things, it's quite similar, except this time around, it's got a good number of additions. Namely, button controls are now fully remappable, which is always a nice addition. And Cal can now also use grapple to help him reach places that are further away, and it really does make you feel like Batman. Wait, no, wrong game. It really made you feel like a Jedi. You now have the ability to fast travel between each meditation spot. It makes traversal much easier, especially when you simply want to return to the Mantis, and without it, it would make backtracking all the more tedious because you visit these few planets several times over. And that's not to say revisiting levels itself is tedious, but having to backtrack definitely would be. Each map is huge and quite dense, and often does make for a lot of great action set pieces, and just overall epic moments akin to God of War. But the incentive to explore other than trying to find a way around your main objective is quite lacking. There are now Zelda-like shrines called chambers, and upon first hearing about this, it sounded cool on paper, but the way that they actually implemented it ended up feeling pretty underwhelming. The first chamber I came across did award you with certain collectibles, but nothing about it really felt worth it. I understand it's optional, but adding something more to it, other than being granted a simple cosmetic item, would have worked out to be much better. Like in Breath of the Wild, where you are motivated to complete shrines because you collect orbs, which in turn can increase the number of hearts you have. And to be clear, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy solving puzzles in the game or finding those collectibles. I'm simply saying, I wish that those chambers provided something more meaningful than just the collectibles you find scattered throughout the game. But I did like the use of BD1's new abilities, such as spraying Koba matter and shooting electric darts. That did make the game a bit more interesting there. There are now new lightsaber stances as well. In Fallen Order, you had the ability to play single-bladed or double. But in Survivor, you can also dual-wield your lightsabers too. And as you progress through the story, you can unlock a pistol and a crossguard, with 2 slots to fill each of these stances at a time. I opted to primarily dual wield and was my go-to stance of choice for most of the game, fully upgrading it all the way. Oh yeah, the skill tree here is also not only more complex than the first, but also your stances have their own as well. Sure, it can be a bit overwhelming to some at times, but no skill tree will ever be as bad as the one that we've seen in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That one was an offense to human eyes, and they knew it too. There's a decent number of new enemies to fight, from stormtroopers to raiders and other aliens, and even battle droids and Imperial security droids. All of these enemies have varying abilities, and being able to switch between certain stances that will help you best defeat a particular enemy does keep you on your toes. What's interesting here though, is that I often felt that some of those enemies were actually tougher than many of the main boss fights. In fact, a lot of the main boss fights felt easier, except Rick the Door Technician. Man, what a boss. There are more customization options in this game. You can change Cal's look from his hairstyle, to his beard style, to his attire. And as I mentioned earlier, you can even rock a mullet if you so choose. And of course, like in the first game, you can customize the look of BD1 and your lightsaber by swapping out components and changing the material type, and even change the color of your blade too. I do wish, however, that these options were able to carry over from game to game, similar to how Mass Effect is able to carry over your decisions and your custom Shepard. Doing this would make it feel more consistent throughout, but if that can't be incorporated, I would have loved to at least see it give you these options beforehand, before the game even begins. Again, similar to Mass Effect. And it's because of this, I decidedly kept my blade the canon color, blue. I did change the lightsaber components after a while, but at least in my head, it made more sense if Cal can construct and deconstruct his lightsaber parts than being able to change the color of the kyber crystal at will. Unless, of course, he's carrying a bunch of them and switches them out every time, which I don't think is the case. And I know, it's not really a big deal at all, but either way, it would be great to see this implemented in some sort of way in the future. Also, I found it odd that you couldn't customize the Mantis like in the first one, but again, not a big deal. Just hope to see this make a return at some point. As you've probably heard, this is yet another extremely disappointing port for PC players, and if you are going to play this, I would recommend playing this on console instead. This game is not available for last gen, and given the sheer size of the game, it kinda makes sense. I played this on PS5, and while it was probably going to play best on next-gen consoles, it is far from perfect even on here. And as someone who is typically more forgiving of visuals and performance in games, I found myself playing around with the settings far more than a lot of games that I've played in recent years. Throughout the duration of the entire game, I found myself toggling between performance and resolution over and over again, because I could not decide what I wanted to sacrifice at any given moment. Resolution mode will get you that 4K 30 with ray tracing, and performance will give you 1440 60. The game will run you between 17 to 25 hours or so, with me spending 22 hours in the game, with much of that time spent toggling, as I just mentioned. The reason for toggling was because personally, the gameplay visuals seem very inconsistent across the board. While I usually gravitate towards sticking with performance, as I prefer frame rate over resolution, like most of you, there were times where the textures looked so low res, I just had to switch it to resolution. Other times though, it would be the better option, because while it wasn't a stable 60, neither was the 30 in resolution. And because I would drop frames quite often, there were a number of times I needed to also drop the difficulty. Now in both resolution and performance mode, even with the film grain and motion blur turned off, the textures, especially on Cal's face, did not render properly, and I found Cal ghosting quite a lot in both modes. And even NPCs can't seem to catch a break. But beyond that in Kobo, there were certain areas where water and rocks looked quite horrendous. There were moments where resolution did look a tad bit better, but even then, not great. And the foliage looks grainy too, even with the film grain turned off. And in both modes, I found there to be quite a bit of screen tearing as well. Now during my playthrough, I didn't encounter any glitches per se, like clipping through walls or floors or anything like that, but the game did crash once towards the end of the game, and I could feel it almost overheating my PS5. With that being said, this certainly isn't nearly Fallout 76 or Cyberpunk level, or even Pokemon Scarlet or Violet level, but we shouldn't be at a point where we simply say, oh, well, at least it's not as bad as those. Quite frankly, this poor optimization across all platforms is unacceptable in 2023 and would have been better if it were left in the oven a little longer. Thus, I would recommend waiting for a patch if you can. If you want a proper in-depth look, I've also included some links down below for you to check out, some of which are from Digital Foundry, and they provide amazing and very thorough breakdowns. Actually, while writing this, Respawn did release a patch for both PC and consoles, fixing various issues I mentioned. I will list all the patch notes down below. I still would wait for further updates, unless you're feeling as desperate as I was to play, in which case, you've probably already played it. Anyway, back to the video. Jedi Survivor is a solid sequel that offers a great story and improved gameplay, though it suffers from technical issues that plague a lot of modern games. The story is well done and even better than the first game, with interesting characters and an engaging plot that keeps the player invested. The gameplay and combat are similar to the first game, but with some good additions like fast travel and new lightsaber stances. However, the chambers feel underwhelming, and the incentive to explore beyond the main objective is quite lacking. The customization options are great, but it would have been nice to see them carry over from game to game, or at least have the option to choose them before starting a new game. And with all the great stuff that Respawn had to offer in Star Wars Jedi Survivor, I wish I could recommend it, but given the performance issues on PC and consoles, I simply cannot. But if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to stay updated with all my latest reviews and retrospectives. And until next time, I'll see you soon.